for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, we are T-minus 4 days away from our trip to Belfast, or trip to Dublin first and then Belfast for the Friendship Four, and I'm getting very excited.
I had a long talk with Brittany from Travel Ireland today, and that was a ton of fun. I was on the phone with her, and she was very happy with everything that's been going on the eye test so far. And I know Brittany's watching right now, and we're very happy to speak with her.
Brittany.
And we can't wait to get to Dublin and the Harry Lemon, and then obviously up to Belfast, and we'll be right over to the Hart Bar, and lots of good stuff coming. It's really exciting.
And can't wait to check out the arena there as well, where the Belfast Giants play, Pierre. I know you've been there. It looks beautiful. I cannot wait to meet the Belfast Giants crew as well. So getting excited for that. But on to NHL stuff, Pierre. We've got a great guest coming up. He does the play-by-play on TSN for currently the best team in the NHL, the Winnipeg Jets, who came up with a big win, answered the bell against the Florida Panthers, who had their way with them down in Florida. The Jets come back and lay a big one on the Florida Panthers in Winnipeg last night. Kind of expected that to happen. And look, we didn't think the Jets were going to go undefeated or, run the table. But it's a good sign when you go on a long win streak and you lose. You know, Pierre, you've coached in the league, you managed. You know, sometimes teams will go the other way for a few games. It's just natural. It's the way that things go. So to see them bounce right back like that, I thought was a very impressive win by the Jets last night.
That's a solid win against a Florida team that's bringing the old Winnipeg Jets coach back into Winnipeg. You know,
that's
and
right.
It's a good win for the Paul Maurice going back in there. So it's obviously a good step forward for them. Not much to dislike about the Winnipeg Jets right now. Scotty Arniel, I can't wait to talk to Dan about Scotty Arniel and the way he's influenced the team, because I think he's had a tremendous influence on the team. But, you know, you want to talk about that game. I want to talk about another game. Everybody's been hard on Boston. Everybody's been hard on Boston, on Jimmy Montgomery. They've been hard on everything, you know, and that's one of the quote-unquote underachieving team in the league. Anybody want to tell me about Ottawa? This is breaking my heart. I care about those guys. I care about that team.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me that was Edmonton's third game in 4 nights?
Tail end of a back-to-back.
Yep, the third game in 4 nights. In Toronto Saturday, in Montreal Monday, in Ottawa Tuesday. They had travel. You mean to tell me that Ottawa rolled over 5-2?
And it was almost over from the get-go, Pierre. I mean, it was like
outside of the tying goal when it was 1-1. That was over right after that. But
I mean,
so, and I get it, but we've all talked about Montreal's supposed to be better. Detroit's supposed to be better. Buffalo's supposed to be better. Ottawa's. Those were like the 4 teams. Everybody said, going to be better, going to be better, going to be better. And I was one of the people that said, going to be better.
Me too.
Well, I'll tell you what, none of them have been better so far.
And Pierre, you got to worry right now a little bit about Linus Ullmark. You know, I mean, he is not, by his admission, and good on him owning it, but by his admission, he has not been up to par yet this season. He's had probably one good start. Was it that? And look, and I'm not trying to take it away from him, but you made a good point too. When I was crediting him, it was against Toronto, that shutout. Was last week, the week before.
Yeah, and Toronto was awful. And they had their wake-up call the next day. They went into Washington, and they woke up. And they haven't looked back since.
So have we seen, and I'm just trying to think off the top of my head here, Pierre, have we seen a game where Ullmark has faced, like last night would have been one of those games. Edmonton, I know they're tired, but they also want to redeem themselves after getting shut out in Montreal. So they're going to mentally be up for this. You know, let's get out there and bounce back. But other games too, where, you know, you think, okay, this is going to be good. I'll give him credit. He was good in that game against Boston, but Boston kind of rolled over in the third period at home, that 3-2 overtime loss for the Bruins. So he has not been where he needs to be right now, but it's not just him. There's an array of things going on with the Senators right now. And I look just squarely at the defense in front of him, Pierre. they're going back to their old habits where I see them coming out of their zone and they're not making the simple play. They're thinking too much. I don't know what it is, but it's turning into turnovers, and turnovers are going in the back of their net.
I have a question for you. How come none of the insiders have ever brought up the question of Linus Ullmark?
Mm-hmm.
Linus Ullmark was traded by the Buffalo Sabres to the Boston Bruins. That's in the division, right, Jimmy?
Mm-hmm. It was actually it was a free agent signing, Pierre.
Oh, free, but they let him go, right?
They let him walk. Yep.
They let him walk. So Boston signs him. Ottawa's still in the same division as Buffalo and Boston, aren't they, Jimmy?
Yes, they are.
Oh, so he's moved as a starting goalie within the division twice.
Yep.
That never used to happen, Jimmy.
No, I know. And, you and I were talking about this a bit off air, and I'll just pose it now. And look, I'm not trying to – I think Linus Ullmark's a solid goalie, but –
No, he's solid. That's not what we're saying. That's not what we're saying.
And I even said I'm a little worried about his former hugging mate in Boston, Swayman. Both of them seem to be suffering right now from not being part of that tandem. They both haven't handled the workload, the increased workload thrown at them that great yet. So I'm just wondering, can both of them? I think Swayman's younger right now, so I think there's still plenty of hope here. But looking at Ullmark, can he be a workhorse goalie?
I don't know. I don't know here's the thing. I don't know the person. I just know the player.
Yeah.
I don't know him as a person at all. Here's what I would tell you. I do know Swayman. Mm-hmm. And I think Swayman will bounce back. The worst thing that happened to Swayman was the negotiation and missing camp. On the eye test, we talked about it from the summertime on. We said if he misses camp, big problem. Big problem. And look, I've seen it too much. You've seen it too much. And I think our fans are starting to realize they're starting to see it too much too.
Yeah, for sure.
But all I'm saying with Ottawa, it's not one thing you can just throw in the goalie. But, Tommy Shabbat's a good player. He can't get walked by Evan Bouchard there last night. He can't get walked like that.
No.
And now all of a sudden I'm seeing, and I really, by the way, you know how I am, Jimmy. You know how mad I get when people take stuff and they don't give credit for it. So I read something by Mark Mathot, who I really respect. I respected him.
We don't script this. I was just going to bring it up. We don't script this. There we go. Go ahead.
I respected Mark a ton as a player. I watched him play junior. I watched him play in the NHL. I broadcast a ton of his games. Heart and soul, hard guy to play against, total team guy. Never about him, always about the team.
Shots all the time.
And so he says, and I read it today when I was actually out working out. He said something along the lines of, we're getting close to where they're going to have to move a core part of the team. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong because they're not firing the GM, the owner's not selling, and they're not firing the coach.
So, Pierre, just before you go on, I'll read the tweet quickly for our viewers and listeners, and you can check him out. He's at Mark Mathot. That's METOHT 3. So at Mark Mathot 3. He said, not trying to sound dramatic at all here, but next on the chopping block, in parentheses, if this continues, isn't the coach or the GM or the owner. It'll be a core piece player, and it's going to sting. This team looked disengaged tonight against a tired Edmonton team. Not good. Hey, tell it like it is, and he's not wrong.
And he works around the team, and he's in Ottawa, and he's an Ottawa guy, and I really respect Mark. As I've said to you before, respect Mark a ton. And I thought that was not malicious, not mean-spirited. I thought it was really appropriate. And I do think the players are playing themselves into a position where one of them is going to be moved. This takes me back to the December 23rd meeting in Pittsburgh in 1991, where Scotty tells me to bring the players to the bench, and I bring the players to the bench. And he says, fellas, we're going to win the cup this year. We're not playing great right now, but we're going to win the cup. And when we do, 2 or 3 of you in this group right now, you're going to be sitting on a couch watching us win. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. And he said, Merry Christmas, and he walked away. And when I read Mark Mathod's text or whatever it was this morning, when I read that, that's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought. Because I think Ottawa's a good team.
Yeah, but you got to do something like that, you know?
Somebody needs, and I hate to use this term because I don't think it's right, but somebody needs to get spanked.
Mm-hmm.
They just need, wake up.
Yep. Well, good segue there, and we're going to waiting for Dan to join us here. He'll be on shortly with us. But good segue. I'll go to the team that we spoke about towards the end yesterday, and that's the Boston Bruins. Pierre, Don Sweeney, and new interim head coach Joe Sacco addressed the media today. The general, is as expected. They praised Montgomery. It's not his fault, but sometimes these things happen. You got to do this, blah, 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 blah. But, I want to ask you, going on what we were just saying about the Senators there, that's pretty much the only move left if things don't go back the other way right now in season, I'm talking about. But I'm looking at that Bruins roster and the contracts and the cap hits, and I just don't see how Sweeney could do that. I don't see, and the ages too. Ottawa, at least if they do want to make a big wake-up call move, they've got some young players to move. But I look at that Bruins roster right now, Pierre, and the only guy that I could see a team taking right now, and also he's got no trade protection for another 2 years, is Swayman. And they're not doing that. They just signed him. So they're stuck with the team they have, unless they, they trade away a Geeky or, a lower forward group player or a bottom pairing guy. But there's not really any type of shakeup move that Sweeney could make. So, maybe that's why they did what they did, because this is the only shakeup they can do.
Well, they had a chance to shake it up this summer.
Yeah.
And they made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
They did. Mistake. Well, that's the same kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If you want to say it, you can say it. They made 2 mistakes.
Yep.
They did. Internally, the question needs to be, I've been in these meetings before. How did we get this so wrong? How did guys that do a podcast get it right in July and we got it wrong?
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
I hope that's not Don Sweeney calling us now, but
no, and I would take it. I would, and I'd say, Jimmy, I got to take the call. I apologize. Listen, I will tell you this, and Donnie knows. I've known Donnie a long time. Going back to when he played at St. Paul's Academy up in Concord, New Hampshire. Yep. So I used to watch him play at the Lawrenceville tournament at Hobie Baker Arena. So we're going back a long way. I coached against him when he was a player in college and in pro. Broadcast a ton of his games. Tons of respect for Donnie. Tons of it.
Yep.
Tons of respect. But internally, they have to ask the question: how do we get these moves wrong? They didn't get. Jimmy Montgomery wasn't the wrong hire.
No, he was not.
I'm telling you, he wasn't. He wasn't the wrong hire. They need to ask the question internally: how do we get this player procurement stuff so wrong? Because I don't see anybody writing about that stuff.
Yeah.
It's always about Jimmy.
Pierre, the common thread, too, coming from the team, from players to Sweeney to Neely, whatever, has been, we didn't like our camp. We didn't come in ready to go or conditioned well or in shape. First of all, it's rare you hear that nowadays, considering how hardcore these kids work out today, and how there usually isn't much of an off season, right? They take maybe a month off and they start hitting it hard. And
I don't want to interrupt you, but I have to for a second.
Go ahead.
Who's in their division? The Florida Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
For the last 2 years, the Florida Panthers knocked the Boston Bruins out of the playoffs. That's number one. Yep. Number two, the Florida Panthers went to the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row. Okay. Yep. The Bruins were having fun on the beach or at the golf course when these guys were playing hockey and getting beat up. And the Boston Bruins didn't win the Stanley Cup the last 2 years, last I checked.
Yep.
Florida Panthers won last year. The year before that, Vegas won.
And look at the start they've had.
Look at both of those teams. Are you kidding me? Stop the nonsense.
Okay, so Pierre, how though? I'm all over, I'm always on social media here, and I'm seeing fans saying, well, that's why Montgomery got fired. It's his job. Excuse me? Is Jim Montgomery supposed to travel city to city, country to country, town to town, and keep tabs on the players?
I didn't know that was
players have to take accountability.
Who wrote that? Was that from a professional journalist?
No, these were from fans.
Okay. So now I think it's really important to do this in a nice way. Once the season's over, the only time the head coach is truly engaged with the players is if there's a player that's got an injury and maybe he wants to make sure that things are going well. So he talks to his strength and conditioning guy, and maybe they go visit him to see how his training's coming back. Or maybe they're in the same town and he picks up the phone and he says, Jimmy, let's go play 18. I'm in town. I'd love to see you. Let's go for dinner. I'd love to talk to you about where we're going to be next year. The head coach has zero responsibility except to maybe be at development camp and watch the kids, maybe be at the draft and listen to what the scouts are saying, and maybe be around July 1st in case they want to pick his brain. Outside of that, that's on other people. You know what's the most amazing thing, Jimmy? All these teams brag about our science and development programs. Mm-hmm. The head coach has nothing to do with those things. Zero.
I know. We'll get back to this in a second because we do have our guest, Dan Robertson, joining us. But I'm glad you brought that thing up because it's something you said last week that's linked to what you just said. So I'll talk about that after we talk to Dan here. But before we bring on Dan, I just want to go back to last night and let you understand how great it was in Winnipeg and how revved up they were for this game right off the get-go. So let's play these clips right now.
For a different style of game here tonight. Now, Kyle Connor walks right in, scores! Downhill now, it's that shot mentality, rapid fire, and it's proving to force Florida. And they're right back in, and Shifley scored! Boy, they would not be denied on that shift, and Shifley makes it 2-0.
So listen up, place. And look, I got to ask, we're going to bring Dan Robertson in right now from TSN in Winnipeg. Dan, come on here. Dan Robertson, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. Hi, Pierre. Hi, Jimmy. I'm looking at your text, and you said, "Are you ready to go?" And I thought, wait, now, I'm in Central Time. I was off by an hour, so that's why I'm late. I nearly took a heart attack.
Clock, eh?
Give him a break. He's a maritimer.
By the way, love the lid. Is that Mariners?
It is. When I was a kid, when I was about 7 or 8, I really took an interest in baseball, and that's around the time the Mariners came in with, I guess, with the Jays, and I always loved the logo. So not so much the team, but I like the old school logo.
Good stuff. I want to ask you, Dan, and you were there in Florida last when they lost to the Panthers down there, and the Panthers fans towards the end of the game start chanting "overrated." Was there any of that back from the Jets fans last night? Because I couldn't hear it that well from the TV, but I'm just asking, were they giving it to them back or what?
Well, they weren't, and it's funny because John Liu, who works for TSN as well, as you know, asked after the morning skate if he expected some of the fans to do that, to sort of go back at the Florida team. They didn't, but it was neat. I mean, fans here, as they are in every Canadian market and other markets too, are really knowledgeable. And one of the best ones this year so far was when Ottinger was with the Stars here in town, and the Jets beat them, and they started to chant U.S. backup because Hellebuck is at the other end. I thought that was perfect.
So they got some creativity.
He's a Minnesota guy too, so you go right after Ottinger. That's good.
That's right.
Hey, Dan, you got to explain this to all of us. Scotty Arniel is a hockey lifer. I know it. You know it. Jimmy knows it. The fans probably don't realize as much because he hasn't been a big name. How much of an impact has he made on this team?
A tremendous impact, Pierre. And it's when the job was up for grabs, I think a lot of us thought he would be the natural replacement for Rick Bowness. A lot of the systems that are in place, he helped put them there. And so there was that familiarity. And what we're hearing from the players is that, and I know this is cliche, but that he really cares about them. And then it comes down, and it's a tight-knit organization in such a small market. It comes from Kevin Cheveldayoff, but with Arnie, he's tough, but but the guys know that he's invested in them, and that's not even the hockey side. But he's been preaching compete, which I suppose every coach does. But you can really see it when they don't have the puck. They want them to really break their backs to get it back, and I've seen a lot of that. So there's a few ways that he's helped, and those are just a couple.
And Dan, one of Pierre's favorite players on that team and in the league, and he was raving about him coming into the season, saying, watch out, is Kyle Connor. I mean, this start that he's had, how much we just talked about how the players are feeding off Arniel. How much are they feeding off him every time he's on the ice and wondering, what's he going to do next?
Yeah, he's pretty spectacular. I think he's the kind of guy that if you don't follow the Jets, you don't know as much as you should about him. And he and Scheifele have played together for so long. They have a certain chemistry, which is pretty remarkable. But Kyle, one of the things that I like about him, and there's a lot to like, but the release on his shot where somebody might pull it back this far, Kyle pulls it back half as far, and he surprises goalies with it. He's got a lethal shot. He's so quick. I mean, even last night, that opening goal, he filled that hole immediately and roofed it on the backhand. So he's a spectacular player. And I know I'm biased because I see him, pretty much every game, but I know there's better wingers in the game, but he is right there. And he's been better defensively this year. He's never going to be Patrice Bergeron, but he's working harder to get the puck back and being a little more careful in his own end, I would say.
How about at the Four Nations if you got Austin Matthews and Kyle Connor on the line? Bon chance, as they say in Dan's old hometown of Montreal, Quebec.
Yeah, you can't help but think about that, right?
No, you can't. I've been thinking about it the whole season. I'm like, whoa, if those guys hook up, this could be lethal. So I know how prepared you are, Dan. I know how professional you are, and I know how hard you work. How much do you guys talk about Hermantown, Minnesota? And how much do you talk about the Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs?
Well, it's interesting. You think about it. So Neil Pionk, which is what you're referring to, and Dylan Sandberg, of course, are from Hermantown, which is not too far from Duluth. And just to see those guys on a pairing, I mean, how rare is that, right? It's such a cool story. And, I mean, you would know better than I would, Pierre, just the number of players that program has produced. But I think Alex and I follow it there as well. And just a number of great players. And I've always, just growing up, even looking at hockey cards and seeing, okay, this guy's from Minnesota. Even in the 70s, there's so many players from Minnesota. And I love to go there. We're going there on this road trip just because it's the state of hockey. And there's something special about going there to watch games. But the thing with Sandberg this year, when Brendan Dillon signed with New Jersey, the Jets knew that Sandberg, or at least they thought he would be ready for a top four role. And so far, so good. He plays a pretty quiet game, pretty efficient, but I've really been impressed by what he's done. And we know what Neil has done. I mean, Neil, he's in a contract year. I'm not saying that's why he's put up the big numbers, but he's an undersized guy, but his heart is massive, and he's got an edge to him. He got the clipping penalty when he dumped Boqvist the other day. I mean, you've got to be aware when he's on the ice, and he's up on the play a lot. So it's a pretty fascinating story.
He really is. Jimmy, before you ask your next question, I just want our viewers and listeners to understand what Dan said about Neil Pionk is spot on, and I didn't rehearse this with him. He might have the most improved shot, I'm telling you, in the whole National Hockey League. Right, Dano, compared to where he was when you first got there to now?
Absolutely.
Jimmy, it's totally different what this guy does with the puck, shooting the puck, and I totally agree with Dan on that.
He's another guy too, guys? Pierre, we've talked about him here, but in general, when you're just having general hockey conversations around the league, you don't hear much about him, no. But every year he's improved. You can see it as Pierre's talking about there. And I think he's a very underrated defenseman in the NHL, Dan.
A couple of years ago, he was dealing with a foot injury that he didn't tell anybody about. And so he shook that. He didn't have the best year. The last 4 years he's been, and this is just points, but low 30s. He took a lot of heat in this city for the last couple of years for his defensive play, but he's been much better this year. And he was better last year than he was previously. When he got here at first, I believe it was the Trouba trade.
It was a Trouba trade. He was in the Trouba trade.
Right. So I get that mixed up with the Kopp trade sometimes. But when he first got here, I think he put up 45 points and everybody thought the sky was the limit. Well, he's back to that. I mean, again, it's just points. It'll be interesting to see where he is, but he's been a big part of what they've been able to do so far.
How about just the depth up front that has really shown through this year? I mean, a guy like Cole Perfetti, they've been waiting for him to arrive. He's gained his confidence. Pierre always raves about Mason Appleton. Just so many guys stepping up that maybe I think a lot of people didn't think of coming into the season.
Yeah, and you mentioned Mason Appleton, and I mean, we harp on this a lot during the broadcasts. He's part of such a good third line with Adam Lowry and Nino Niederreiter. They're not going to put up huge numbers, but I mean, they will shut you down. And Nino's great along the boards in front of the net, and it's been fun to watch him since he became a Jet every night and really appreciate what he can do. And another guy who was, when he was in the Western Hockey League, was a massive scorer, but he's had to adapt his game like so many players do, right? It's tough to be that elite scorer in the NHL, but he's so gritty. And Adam is, when he became captain, that really helped change the room. He's such a quality person. He fights when he has to. He's always a stand-up guy. And Mason uses his speed well. It's just, I talked with Mason the other day about it. He said, we've played together so much. We just know each other's tendencies. And so I like the fact that they've been together a long time, and you can really see it. I enjoy watching the three of them. You wouldn't call them dynamic offensively, but they're just an excellent third line.
But you can't win the cup if you don't have a line like that. You know, go back to 07, started with Anaheim, and look at Sammy Paulson and Niederreiter and what they were able to do. You can start there and just look at all these teams and win the cup. If they don't have that check and line or those character guys Dan just talked about, Jimmy, there's no way.
Remember what Scotty said? No.
Yeah, that's Scotty. Scotty Bowman talked about it before the season started on this show, Dan, and exactly what you just said. Hey, Dan, I want to be positive because I'm a huge fan. I want to be totally clear. I'm really good friends with your owner, Mark Chipman. Okay, I like him a lot. I'm on the Hall of Fame committee with him. I really respect him. I've known him a long time. Why isn't the building full?
Oh, well, as I look right down on Portage Avenue right now, the economy's not great. I know that's part of it. And obviously this story really came out last year, and it happened to coincide with Gary Bettman coming a little bit later, and he addressed some of the issues. It's expensive to come to games. It's dangerous around the arena. I'm not going to pull any punches. It's not a place where you necessarily want to be out on the street after dark. It's just the way it is. So it was filled the last two nights. I know just the way things are, it's I guess a lot to ask, even though the capacity is the smallest in the league. I guess I'm not sure where Utah is, but it's right there. I think those are two of the main things. I think if they keep up what they're doing, then they're going to drive more people to the building. But my thought was, what if they were in last in the Central? What would the building look like then? So I hope it turns around. Maybe it's stuff beyond the hockey product. I know it is, but it's discouraging some nights or days you look out and it's a little more than 3/4 full, but certainly not at capacity.
Because, Jimmy, I think Dan could tell all of us, I spent a lot of time in Winnipeg over the course of my career. It is an amazingly vibrant hockey market, right, Dan? I mean, you're there, your boots on the ground, you see it. It breaks my heart. I mean, I used to bring my team in early to practice at old Winnipeg Arena because the ice was so darn good. You'd have amazing practices there, like unbelievable practices.
Yeah.
So,
well, can I tell you a story about the old Winnipeg Arena quickly, Pierre, now that you say that? Sergio Momesso told me this. I don't think he'd mind. The late Gino Ojic and Sergio were skating around for the warm-up, and there was that iconic portrait of
the Queen
Elizabeth.
Oh, yeah.
So they're skating around, and Gino says, "Hey, Mo." And Sergio says, "What's that, Gino?" He said, "Why is there a picture of the mayor up there at the end of the rink?" Oh, I love Gino.
Hey, now I can tell it, and I hope he hears it because he'll call me up and get mad. Opie Samuelson, in one of those practices I'm talking about, he started shooting pucks at the picture of the Queen.
Oh, gosh.
And there was no netting in those days. And I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Don't like her."
Well, if you have Irish in here,
I just started laughing. I was, "Opie, get up."
That's great.
Yeah, just talking about the fan base there though and how great they are. The sense I always get from afar, and I've never been to Winnipeg, so I don't know personally, but the vibe I get from them and their fan base, it's kind of like we started off talking about baseball, like the Cleveland Indians. It's a small market. They haven't won in so long, and the Jets never won. And it's just, I want to see a city like that, a market like that win the cup. I just for the appreciation, the relief, and the celebration, I think it would be great for hockey.
I do too. And what happens here in the playoffs, and what happens with me as soon as the regular season is over, we don't have playoff coverage rights, so I head back east. But we know what the atmosphere is like when the team makes the playoffs with the whiteout and the street parties and all of that sort of thing. And when it's a situation like Winnipeg, it's not just the city. It's not just the province even. I mean, our coverage goes into Saskatchewan and northwestern Ontario. Like it's a community thing, and it's so much of a fabric of this part of the fabric of the city. So I would love to see them. You know, the last couple of years, it's been the same story. They win the first game, they lose the next 4, and there's disappointment. I think that's why everybody's hesitant to get too excited about this year. But even if they were to win a round, and what that would do for the economy and just the spirit of the people and the hockey fans here. So, you know, I guess every fan base will say they deserve a Stanley Cup, and they do to some extent. But oh boy, if it happened here, I can't imagine what it would be like.
If Winnipeg wins the cup before Edmonton or Toronto, oh my goodness.
Imagine.
Or Montreal.
Yeah.
They want it, you know.
Yeah, they won enough back in the day.
Last team to win it. Hey, Dan, I just want to say this because I know we kept you a long time. Everything's good in Montreal, but it's always a little better when you're doing the games.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Pierre.
You're missed there, Dan. And I was just going to say that it was great. I remember having some good times with you there at McLean's and after games, and also tell Sergio Momesso we say hello. Okay, I miss him as well.
I will. We're going back. The last time the Jets played in Montreal, we didn't have rights to that game, but we have it this year. And I've always said this: it's my favorite place to call a game. It's there's nothing like it. It's pretty damn good here too. But Montreal's Montreal. So
hey, Jimmy, one more thing. He said that once the playoffs start, he's going to go back east. I'm going to bet money on this one. I think they're going to keep you there and force you to work.
Well, I wouldn't mind, but if I do go back east, I can rent my apartment. If they get to the final, I'll make a mince.
Yeah, put that on Airbnb, eh? Nice.
Yeah.
I know a good hotel you can stay at that you can still walk to the rink, and I think you know the hotel I'm talking about.
I absolutely do, for sure.
Dan, always a pleasure,
awesome.
friend.
So nice
We'll
visiting
cross
you.
paths.
Thank you.
Great to see you, and I'm gonna learn my time zones for next time. Thanks,
Don't
guys.
worry about it. Love it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan.
Dan Robertson
See ya.
joining us here on the eye test. He's one of the good ones, Pierre.
Oh my! Hey, listen, you hear those pipes?
Oh.
Those are Chuck Caton-esque pipe. Those are legendary Hall of Fame type pipes. And his I wasn't messing around. So that was kind of a trick question. I was leading him up. You guys must be talking about Hermantown a lot. You must be talking about Minnesota Duluth. And right away, bing, bing, bing. You nailed all 3 like he knew.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, every time I see, especially when I see Sandberg and Pionk on the ice together, I'm like, I wonder if people really know. Like, Hermantown's got maybe 11,000 people in it.
Wow.
Maybe. It's a suburb, not a suburb, but it's outside Duluth. And then you got Iafallo, who grew up in Buffalo, but he went to Minnesota Duluth too. You got 3 guys from Minnesota Duluth there. And that's about 6 hour drive from Duluth to Winnipeg, give or take, depending on whether there's snow or not. And he nailed that right away. Like he knew right away. And I didn't.
He's a hockey lifer. He knows his stuff.
We don't rehearse it. We don't rehearse it.
And hey, Gabriel Lamb pointed out too, Pierre, in our comment section. I don't know if we can find it there, guys, and pull it up, but he said, "Don't forget Brett Hull." When you talk about Minnesota,
Brett Hull, Billy Watson, there's a lot, but Brett Hull didn't play in Winnipeg. He went. He's from Duluth.
But
you know, Normie McIver played for Edmonton. Normie McIver played in Winnipeg. Normie McIver played he's a Minnesota Duluth guy. There's a lot. Duluth's had a great program for a long time. Their coach, by the way, Scott Sandlin, is one of the better coaches in college hockey. He was drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. I mean,
I want to ask you too, Pierre, just out of curiosity, because I said I've never been in the area. I don't know it well, just from what I see on TV. But, I know Minnesota has the Wild. I know they have an array of college hockey teams to cheer for, really good ones too all the time. But are there Jets fans near the border there? Does it trickle in at all?
So I love what Dan said too. This is really important. And this is a shout out to all This is a shout out to all the people in northwestern Ontario. This is a shout out to all the people in northern Minnesota. It's a shout out to all the people in northern North Dakota from Grand Forks up. A shout out to all the people in eastern Saskatchewan and to the whole province of Manitoba. They are the ultimate area team. And so Dan wasn't BSing when he said, our rights are picked up in northwestern Ontario. Our rights are picked up in eastern Saskatchewan because there's a territorial line between Edmonton, Calgary, and the Saskatchewan province. And I don't know where that line starts. It might start in Regina. It might start in Swift Current. I don't know. But they are the eastern part of Saskatchewan's like Jets country, and the western part is Calgary, and obviously, so it's kind of, I mean, I've been through there a lot in my career.
That reason, they got to figure this out with, you know, the financial issues that are going on. I don't know what the league can do, but you cannot ever think about leaving again there. That area, that whole area needs that team.
Oh, I agree. Now, again, the economy is tough in Canada. It's not just that Winnipeg story. It's all. Canada's in a tough spot because of the value of the dollar right now. Now we'll see where it goes in the next couple months. You know, if the dollar's starting to straighten out, then it'll be less pressure on these owners. But, you know, what people need to know, and this is an important thing, the Canadian teams take in Canadian dollars and they pay out U.S. They do. You know, and it's much more difficult for them to survive because of that. It's just much more difficult.
Yep. And we got Kathleen asking for good suggestions in Montreal. Kathleen, I'm writing her right now. 1 sec.
Oh, Kathleen, we have
you need to go to Hurley's and McLean's and Brutopia. That's the Murph Triangle. Tell them I sent you.
No, but you're talking just alcohol side. What about food?
Oh, she's saying to watch the game. That's what she's
to
saying.
Watch the game.
Yeah. McLean's is a good spot.
Those are all good spots. Kathleen, I would love for you to go to Vago on Green Avenue with your husband. Yeah. It's an Italian restaurant.
Pre-game dinner.
I've been eating there for over 25 years. When my father passed away, we had all our friends over there for a nice dinner. Whenever Scotty Bowman's in town in Montreal and I'm around, we always go there for dinner. And it's very quiet, and it's an amazing Italian restaurant. Vago, V-A-G-O.
Yep, in Montreal. They're great. All right, let's get over. We'll go to our Q&A in a second, but let's tell you first, again, we want to remind everybody we're coming right up on the Friendship 4. So next Monday, Pierre and I will arrive in Dublin. We'll head over to the Harry Lemon. It's right in the center of Dublin there. Not hard to find. You go over there. We'll be doing a broadcast at 2 p.m. local time at the Harry Lemon. And then we're going to head up to Belfast. We're going to do shows Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at the Heart Bar in downtown Belfast. On Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll be there 4 to 5 broadcasting. And on Thursday, we'll be there 3 to 4. So come by if you're going over for the Friendship 4. If you're watching from there now, come say hello to us. We'd love to meet you, and we're very excited.
There are a lot of expats over there, especially in Dublin. You guys show up, and I know. I was over there in the summertime. Yep. I was over there last Christmas, and don't worry, I heard you. I said hello.
And more and more hockey fans, as we said, thanks to the Belfast Giants, Pierre. And I've had some Giants fans reach out to me. I'm going to have to get a Giants jersey, I think. They're working on that for me. So
I know the right person for that. Stevie Thornton might be able to help you with that. Stevie's done such an outstanding job as a manager there. He's done a great job. Sheldon Keefe's brother is the coach of the Belfast Giants, just so everybody understands. This is an amazing pilgrimage for Jimmy and I. And we're really happy that so many families are going to be there. It sounds like, Jimmy, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the initial count was over 800 people were just from North America were coming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that doesn't count.
That's just connected to the teams.
That's what I'm saying. That's just with the teams.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know the games are sold out.
Yep.
I know the games are all sold out. So,
yeah.
I can't wait.
And I can't wait, Pierre, for that Friday game, you know, that Sarah Stanton was telling us about, where they have because the teams will go and visit schools. Yeah. And then those schools come and cheer for those specific teams that they hung out with. So I'm looking forward for that too. Should be good stuff.
For you, Murphy. They'll all be cheering for Murphy.
All right. Let's tell you about our great sponsor, Betway. You know them by now if you watch us here on the Eye Test. They are the leading global online betting and gaming brand. You want to follow your gut instinct, go with Betway. You can go right there to sign up with that QR code in front of you if you're watching right now. Or if you want, go over to the website. Sign up there. And remember, you always must be 18 plus and bet responsibly. Man, the mush we're going to call me, not Murphy, the mush right now. But I'm breaking the streak tonight, Pierre, because you know what? Why not just pick the obvious? Sometimes when you're in a slump, you got to pick the obvious, go with the hot horse. And that's Martin Necas right now to score a goal and register a point in his 14th straight game. That's at plus 140 if you go over to Betway right now. So there you go, a small one, just Martin Necas, ride the hot Necas while he's smoking, because man, his Trip told us right now, he's just scoring and setting up offense from everywhere.
I got a text from a bunch of people today, different verbiage, but they're all like, "Is Trip Tracy as nice as he seemed on your show?"
Isn't that great?
He's actually nicer. He is.
Yeah.
He's a really nice man. He's really smart too, by the way. I don't think people realize he went to Milton Academy, which is one of the top prep schools in North America, and he also went to Harvard.
Oh yeah,
he's a smart cookie, but he's fun as all get out, and he's doing great in life, which really makes me happy.
I remember the first time we had him on, we figured out I missed him by 1 year. I was at St. Sebastian's, and then when I graduated, he came in the next year, played for Milton Academy. All right, let's get to the Q&A. John Smith. What's up, John? When a team is looking for a new GM or coach besides the guys within the organization, is there a list of active guys that they are looking for work? Pierre, you would know better than me. I'll let you take this.
Oh, I definitely know.
Yeah.
There's a list. The league runs a pretty significant clearinghouse. They don't want to recommend people that might not fit the mold. And sometimes you have a maverick owner, and I don't want to call him a renegade, but somebody that just dances to their own drummer. He says, "I'm not paying attention to your list. I'm going to hire whomever I think is the best person." But usually there's a list. It's probably like 10 to 12 guys that are on it. Some guys, don't last on the list very long. They get 1 or 2 interviews, and then they never interview again just because they don't present properly. But there's a list, and the clearinghouse is really thorough from the league. The league is amazingly thorough when they do background checks.
I wonder what that list was like in the last calendar year with 16 coaches hitting the free agent market.
Well, so it's harder on the coaches. The league can't really track the coaches because they come from everywhere.
Yeah,
they track the management people. I thought this would be the year the GMs would be in trouble, and I still think
could be.
I still think I'm great on that. And by the way, one other thing, I was really disappointed where Anaheim was, and you see what's happening now.
Yep.
They're starting to go. So we talk about getting to the 20-game mark or U.S. Thanksgiving. So now you see why you need that extra time with a younger team. Look where they're going. That was a tough back-to-back. They win in Dallas, and they go into Chicago.
Yeah.
And they win last night in Chicago. The desperate Chicago team. Desperate.
Yep. So, Pierre, they're buying into Crow's system. That's what's going on there.
This is not about Crow. They got a lot of young kids there.
But Gauthier finally is just like he's rolling, Pierre.
Cutter's awake now. He's getting used to the tempo, and he's getting used to being – he has to serve himself physically. Zegras was good last night with points. Zegras was good. So.
Good on you to give him credit because I know he's been taking a lot of hell lately. So, all right, next question. Sound the siren. What's up? Jimmy and Pierre, not to go backwards too much, but filling the massive holes of Krejci and Bergeron, could that leadership still be lacking? 100% sound the siren. And also the depth at center.
I completely agree. It's a great point. It's very relevant. And it's hard to replace centermen. Jimmy, Joe Thornton got traded away from Boston a long time ago, and that's not a knock on the guys that came. Brad Stewart was a good player. Wayne Primo was a good player. They had solid players. Marco Sturm was a good player. But Jimmy, they weren't Joe Thornton.
No, they weren't.
One of them was Joe Thornton.
Nope. And Pierre, what I couldn't understand, and I remember this, and I said this today, I was on another show today. I remember when you get Bergeron and Krejci, and you're kind of getting to that point, it's going to be happening within the next year, 2, 3, maybe, right? And you're starting to feel that, and I'm sure they are as well. But it just didn't seem to be a focus, and maybe I'm wrong. I wasn't behind the scene. I'm just saying what I see from the outside, what I've heard from scouts that talk to Bruins scouts. There didn't seem to be a clear succession plan at the center position, and that worried me as we got closer to when they retired, and now look where they are.
I don't think they were counting on Poitras getting hurt last year.
Yeah.
So to be fair to them, no, but I think they were kind of counting on him being part of that group that was going to lead him out of the forest. And then he got hurt, and now it's been a more difficult transition for him, and that's why he's in the American Hockey League.
Right.
I think they were counting, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I'm going to say what I think. I think they were counting on Fabian Lysell to be an impact player in the league.
Yeah.
And that hasn't happened yet. Now, maybe with a different coach, maybe he gets an opportunity. You don't know. And that's not to say Jimmy didn't want Lysell or did want Lysell. I don't know the answer. But I think those were two guys that were kind of hoping we're going to take another step up. And, for Poitras, it's the injuries. You can't control that. You just can't.
I just wonder, how do they attack that going forward to rebuilding the center depth, Pierre? That's the thing that worries me most about the Bruins going forward.
I think it's sound of siren and you are both making unbelievable sense.
Yep. Good point. All right. Next question. Randy Workman. Question: did the Bruins overestimate Lindholm? Yeah. I think they know that now too. So we'll see. Again, another center issue. All right. Next question. Postnet on 1:30. Pierre and Jimmy, the Oilers versus Habs game on Monday night on Prime. The camera angles were unique. Do camera crews for Hockey Night in Canada, TSN, Sports Night, etc., use different or same setups in given arenas? Example, defensive faceoffs. Pierre, you worked in the business for so long, I'll let you answer this.
So first of all, the man that produced that game, his name is Mark Askin. He's a legendary producer. He cut his jib with Hockey Night in Canada. He was there forever and ever and ever. And he learned from the very best people that ever did games, including one of our dear friends on this show, John Shannon, who is, I think, one of the best producers in the history of sports. Forget hockey. He's an amazing producer. I worked with him. So Mark is a very creative producer. I watched that same game that you did because I do a post-game show right here on the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro after every Montreal game during the week. And so there were some unique angles. The only angles that I can tell you are always lead pipe cinch, guaranteed, are the game cameras. The game cameras you watch go from center ice. That's called the game cam. Now, high and wide is different. That's their choice, how much they want to spend on cameras. But there were some definitely different angles from that game.
Pierre, I gotta, and I'm not just saying this because you worked for them and you're my partner, and I indirectly know them through you. But I mean, I gotta think that the great Sam Flood had a lot to do with revolutionizing the camera angles and the way we want to produce the game and present it to the viewing public. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. It's one of the only heartbreaks I have. When NBC lost the rights, I think it really affected a lot of things in the hockey business.
Because I urge, if you can, you probably find it on YouTube, go back and watch games pre-04-05 lockout and pre-NBC, and then compare them. And I just remember as a fan, Pierre, watching it when they came back from that lockout and being astonished. And of course, you guys were versus then, I believe, right?
We were versus before.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, and so I just remember it was drastic. It was very noticeable. So, credit to him for helping to revolutionize that. All right, next question.
Sam Flood was a revolutionary person, and the guy that really supported him and never gets enough acclaim is Dick Ebersol, who's an iconic figure in all of television sport. Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, the NBA on NBC, the Olympics. Dick Ebersol, who's still with us, his fingerprints are all over the marquee events and how television's been revolutionized, or sports on television has been revolutionized. The number one thing they did, I mean, it sounds self-serving, it's not, but going inside the glass. That was them. They created that, and they were staunch. They were staunch on it.
Yep. Look at how many people do it still now on different networks. So, all right, next question.
For all the sports. For all the sports. Not just hockey.
All right, what do we got? GB, what's up, GB? Did Montgomery challenging his top players cost him his job? I don't think so.
No chance. No. Anybody that says that, no way. They're wrong. They've never been in a dressing room. They've never been on a bench. No chance. Yeah. Guys get challenged all the time. Hey, listen, that's part of the deal. Guys know it. From the time we start playing hockey, you get challenged, you get pushed, you get prodded. How do you respond? It's a character sport.
No chance. It is, and it's so intense as well. And, I'll tell you this too. And look, I know he's taking a lot of heat right now, but I think if Don Sweeney saw that, considering all the stuff that went down before with Cassidy and all that, I think that player's the one we're talking about that's moving out right now and not the coach. So that locker room did not tune Jim Montgomery out.
There's
I'll tell you that right now.
Hey, no way. I just think the roster's flawed. And I think Sound of Siren's point was great. I mean, they're not deep enough at center.
Yep, and the Swayman thing hurt. It hurt them. It is what it is.
All the stuff that and I know some people didn't watch because it's summer, but we were doing a show every Wednesday in July and August. Every Wednesday we did a show. And we talked about all these different teams and all the different acquisitions, and there were a bunch of things that we talked about. One of them was Swayman. If he wasn't in camp, it was going to be a problem. It's a problem. We talked about Elias Lindholm is not a number one center. We repeatedly talked about that. The best year of his career, he played with Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk in Calgary. And the other thing is, and Jimmy, I'm bringing it up again because I talked to you about it this morning, Zadorov. Like the guy a lot. Nobody has written this anywhere. It's mind-boggling.
Pierre.
He started in Buffalo. He went to Colorado. He went to Chicago. He went to Calgary. He went to Vancouver. And now he's in Boston. How many years do you think he's been in the league?
I know. Not enough to be on that many teams. And Pierre, you know, I got to go back and check. I'm pretty sure it was Sacco when I was watching a video today of their presser. And he said, well, now that Zadorov's in a more natural or fitting position to him, meaning he's on the third period, you think? Like, I mean, this is where they should have had him. And he's going to get better. He's not going to be this bad all season. He's going to get better because he's not going to be asked playing above where he should be. And I'm telling you, it will help the team.
He was overhyped. Overhyped.
And that's not his fault.
No, it is not his fault. By people that never really saw him play. This is another issue that's happening in the game, and the internet's responsible for it.
Yes.
People formulate opinions based on highlights on X.
Yep.
That is not
and word of
watching
mouth.
a game.
Yeah.
Not watching a game.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Alex Ivanowski, just reading some of the tea leaves around the Bruins. Do you think players in that room resent Swayman for the way the contract was handled? Elliot F., meaning Elliot Friedman, mentioned that the whole thing may be lingering. Well, I think we've kind of been, I don't know offhand. No players told me, or I haven't heard from any sources or anything, or even seen any quotes showing that they resent him. But I think, as Pierre just said, we were predicting it was going to linger if that happened, if it went that route. And I, for him being rusty, and I think it being a distraction throughout camp and coming into the season, yeah, I think it definitely hovered over them, and it still is.
They're just not getting enough from that position, and they're not getting enough from the center position, and they're putting pressure on guys to play out of character to do stuff that they're not capable of doing.
Exactly.
So the one thing, and I haven't talked to Joe Sacco in a couple of years, but I'm just telling you, if you were to ask me, what's the one thing you think I should do? Clearly defined roles for every player. Don't ask a guy to be a 1A when he's a 2B.
And stick to him.
Just give them their role and force them to play the role that you think they're best suited for. And I think a lot of players were being asked to do things, and this is not on Jimmy. Jimmy had no choice. It's a roster that he had.
Yeah.
But he was asking guys to do stuff they weren't capable of doing.
Yeah, and back to that question too about, do we think some of the leaders resented him or that he was too hard on them? Let me tell you this. Again, we don't know anything. It didn't seem that way to us, and I'll stick by that. But from what I know of Joe Sacco, he's a lot harder on players than Jim Montgomery. He's going to be a lot more straightforward. So, if there were any players that thought, oh, this guy's too hard, we got to get an easier coach, you just let the players coach go, in my opinion. Now you're in for it. So we'll see. All right, next question. Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, do you think the NHL should allow 19-year-olds to play in the AHL? Yes.
I do. And not only that, I think they do more easily now because of what's going on with the college and major junior relationship that's about to be fostered on us or put on us. I think you'll have more players that'll be able to play major junior, and that will allow, so they won't have their top players taken away from them. There'll still be enough good players to play. So I think the answer is yes.
All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, we talked a little bit about Bedard in Chicago yesterday. Do you think it's time? Alex, you have our phone tapped? Do you have our phone tapped?
What did I tell you this morning? I did. I told Jimmy.
Yeah, this exact conversation. Alex is asking, do you move him to the wing permanently or still keep playing him at center? Pierre, you
put him on the wing. Just put him on the wing.
Yep, put him on the wing. And look, he's an amazing, talented player. He's going to excel better on the wing. I'm with Pierre on that. I'm with you, Alex. All right, next question. Postnet on 130. U.S. dollar versus Canadian dollar should attract U.S. residents to Canada to see games. More marketing needed to attract the fans. What do you think? Well, listen, once my daughter hits college, maybe I'll do that, Postnet. Don't worry. I wouldn't mind moving back to Montreal.
So that's why we talked about the influence of northern Minnesota. That's why we talked about the influence of northern North Dakota, because they can come up. And that's one of the things about Winnipeg. They're an area team. The problem's going to be when Montreal and Toronto go down to Florida and Tampa, which they do. Those used to be huge games, especially when the Panthers were no good. A lot of their ticket sales were generated by Canadian fans coming down, or New Yorkers coming down. The New Yorkers don't have to worry because their dollar still goes to stay, and the dollar's a dollar. For a Canadian to go down, it's almost you got to have $1.50 to buy a dollar. It's a way different deal. So let's see how the crowds are when Montreal and Toronto go to Florida.
And those flights aren't getting any cheaper either, you know? So
they're not.
Good point by you. All right, next question. HDR DGS. Gents, who will center Patrick Laine when he returns? Pierre, I saw this earlier. I was just going to ask and say, you know, they wanted, before he got hurt, right? The plan was Doc in the center and then Newhook on the other wing, right? Do you think they go back to that?
That's what it should be.
I would think so, too.
I think I got to have a hard talk with Kirby and say, look, we know you're coming off an injury. You're going to have to grind too, man. You're going to have to buckle up and grind.
Yeah.
Maybe they've already had that talk. He's an important part of their rebuild. Doc is a really important part of their rebuild.
Habination saying lots of Americans in town to see Taylor Swift.
Oh, yeah.
She's in Toronto, right?
She was in Toronto. My brother sent his daughter and his wife to go see them.
So my daughter's step aunt, she took her step cousins up there, and they had tickets for both nights, Pierre. So they went the first night, had a great time, and then they said, "Let's sell the second night. Why not?" They got $5,000 a ticket for nosebleeds.
Yeah, well,
for nosebleeds.
It's the Taylor Swift economy. All people need to know, and this is, I'm not telling tales out of school. This is the first time the Hockey Hall of Fame induction went earlier in November.
Is it because of that?
It is because of Taylor Swift was coming in the Hall of Fame weekend, and the cost of the hotel rooms was out of control. And so they moved the Hall of Fame back a week. So that
makes sense.
It was more digestible for the family and friends and the fans that weren't from Toronto who were coming in. And it's not just the hotels, it's the restaurants and also the airlines. The airlines. They changed the price of the tickets. It's the Taylor Swift economy. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember listening. I was listening to TSN Toronto the other day, Pierre, and they were saying, where are they going to have the Argonauts parade with all these Swifties here?
I'll tell you what, they're going to the Vegas-Toronto game tonight. They're going they're going to be celebrated tonight.
That's cool. Good for them. Congratulations to them, by the way.
Congratulations to Keith Pelly and everybody with the Toronto Argonauts. I'm an Alouettes fan. I'll be totally transparent on that, but I love seeing the East beat the West, so I'm a fan of that.
There we go. There we go. All right. I think, let's see, is that it? We got two more or what? Yep. All right. FFF. Should the Habs hire Montgomery as an assistant coach? I don't think it would be a bad idea. I don't know if he'll do it right now. I don't know if he'll have
a great idea, but I don't think he'll do it right now either.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Mike, considering Laine hasn't played much hockey in the last year, would playing him, Suzuki, not be the best way to ease him in?
No, I don't want him playing with Suzuki. Slavkovsky needs to be playing with Suzuki.
Exactly. Yeah. I think they do what we said earlier. They'll try that and see how it works. All right, next question. Are we done? I think we're done. There we go. Oh, there we go. Randy Workman. Jimmy and Pierre, do you think the Bruins make the playoffs? I don't have an honest answer for you right now, Randy. I'm at a loss. I don't know.
One of the things that keeps them viable for a playoff position, Jimmy, Montreal hasn't taken the next step. Detroit hasn't taken the next step. Ottawa hasn't taken the next step. Buffalo hasn't taken the next step. So one of the reasons why Boston's still a viable playoff team is because those other teams haven't taken the next step yet. Doesn't mean they won't.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean they can't. But so far, they have not.
I'm a little worried, Pierre. And look, we were talking about how strong the Atlantic looked coming in compared to the Metro. There's a couple teams in the wild card area there in the Metro right now that could wind up bumping them out that we weren't counting on being there, Pierre. And I don't know how far they'll go, or they've been up and down, I know, but they're hanging around there, and that's the New York Islanders. I mean, what if they make a deal and they get on a run? I mean, there's so many different things that could happen. Like we say every day, the parity's amazing.
So here's the one question I have is, do the Pittsburgh Penguins become buyers or sellers?
That's a big factor. Yep.
Because there are assets there that they sold at the right price to the right team. They become, a rebuilding team, and somebody gets richer, whomever gets some of those assets. If they don't sell, it's going to be a very, very painful second half of the year.
All right. Well, listen, we want to thank our guest, Dan Robertson of TSN Winnipeg. He was great, eh, Pierre?
Really
always
good. I'm missing the Montreal, but he's a professional broadcaster. He's really good.
Yep. And that booming voice. And thank him for joining us here on the Eye Test. Thank our production crew up in Montreal. Sammy, if you're watching or listening, we're thinking of you, buddy. And also thank you, the listeners and the viewers. We appreciate your support. He's Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. We will talk to you tomorrow on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.